is 16 minutes away from 7 o'clock. Less than a week out from election day, and National is warning of a second election. Yes, they are. And its hopes of getting a clear National Act win are waning by the day. We're also talking this morning about the conflict between Israel and Hamas. ACT leader David Seymour is with us, along with Green MP Chloe Swarbrick. Good morning.
Morning.
Good to have you here. Chloe, can I start with you? Do you support Israel's right to defend itself against these attacks?
I need to be really clear in the strongest possible terms that violence against civilians is absolutely never okay, and we need to see the United Nations here take a responsibility in helping to facilitate peace, because, again, what is currently occurring with regard to civilians is just simply not okay.
Do you support Israel's right to defend themselves?
I think, again, we need to be really aware that what we're talking about is a conflict that goes back decades, and also what we're talking about with regard to the occupation of Gaza is a situation that has been reported by Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International and multiple UN agencies as probably in breach of international law. So, again, I think that it is the place of the United Nations here to facilitate a peaceful two-state solution.
David, Christopher Luxon said in a statement that there was no justification for these attacks from Hamas. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, normally this whole Middle East situation is very complex, and far be it from me to explain the rights and wrongs of it that have built up over such a long time. But what's happened in the last 48 hours is completely wrong. You've got people being dragged out of their homes by terrorists, people being murdered in the street. I mean, this is just totally unacceptable, and New Zealand should be standing clearly alongside where all of our allies, Australia, the UK, America, have all said this is wrong, we utterly condemn it, and that should be the position of the New Zealand government too. Yeah, and you would condemn the deaths of civilians on both sides of the conflict? Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. But I also just make the point that, you know, this is what happens when you have invasions. I mean, it is wrong to invade, it is wrong to terrorise, and it would have been much better if Hamas had not started this, obviously. It's wrong for people to have to suffer due to this kind of aggression. Chloe, what would your message be to Hamas? Not that they're going to be listening to us, but right now they've got women, reportedly children, scores of them, and even some elderly that they're holding reportedly underground in Gaza right now, and their families are back in Israel. We're about to speak to one of those people after 7 o'clock this morning who are in Israel fearing for the worst. In the violence. It's really as simple as that. I mean, when we're talking about getting towards a peaceful solution, it is fundamental to the values of the Green Party that we get there through a process of non-violence, and that requires being able to facilitate these talks. And this is where I think that the international community has a responsibility, and particularly the United Nations, not the least, because organs of the United Nations have made the point that, again, this occupation is probably unlawful under international law. All right, I'm going to do a show of hands because we're going to talk about the election. Well, actually, not this election, but the possibility of another one. Okay, so hands up if you think a second election is a good idea. Well, like in 3 years' time. That would be great. Let's keep doing democracy, but not immediately after this one. Okay. Hands up if you think it was a good idea for the national parties to even mention a second election. I can't begin to imagine what their strategists are thinking at the minute. What is going on here, David? It's clear who the coalition of chaos is at the moment, isn't it? Look, I think, you know, we can play games putting hands up and so on, but there's some people that have been forgotten here, and it's the mums and dads and kids going back for the first day of the term. Today, they're under huge pressure. They're seeing mortgage rates that have risen or may rise soon. They're wondering how they're going to balance their budget. They're looking at the amount of crime that we've seen even just in Auckland in the last week, and they want to see a country where everyone feels included. Now, you know, this is a lot of work that needs to be done, and rather than all of this political commentary and horse race, what we need to say is how do we change? This is horse racing. This is National Party is forgetting about those voters. Yeah, I think it's much better to focus on how are we going to make sure that people can breathe at the end of the week because finances are tight. You know, how do we make the place safe? David, you say this, but you have been at war with Winston Peters for the best part of a couple of months now. So is it a little rich for you to be calling the
pot calling the kettle black?
No, I think it's actually quite reasonable for me to say, first of all, we're here to make sure that the government changes and that it's a government of real change, and to tell the truth that, in the times that you've had New Zealand First in the mix, it's been much harder to solve those problems that we want to solve. And, some people say, well, it's disruptive. Well, actually, it's pointing out some basic facts that they do tend to change their positions a lot, and it's ultimately all about them. So what I've been saying is in aid of exactly the practical problem solving that somebody waking up thinking, here's another term, needs. We need to be able to make life affordable.
But is your commitment to make it work with Winston Peters to avoid a second election? You'll do everything possible, basically. You won't let a second election happen on your watch.
We will make sure that there is a change of government, and it's a government of real change. And then what happens after that? Well, of course, you've got multiple people in the mix. Yeah. And by the way...
But it won't fall over because of your lack of trying?
No, it won't.
Okay.
Look, 80% of people haven't voted yet, remember.
Yeah.
We actually need to give people the choice. And I say to people, if you want to change the government, you want to make that change real, and you want a stable and united government that can get stuck into fixing the economy, getting your living costs down by any government weight, then we're the party that can do that.
What are you thinking watching all of this play out? I mean, on one hand, it's like, you can probably have a laugh at it, but on the other hand...
Yeah, we're talking about the future of the country.
Exactly. We're talking about the future of the country, which doesn't involve you guys.
I do have to say that New Zealanders that I've been speaking to, particularly those in Auckland Central, but also across the rest of the country, are feeling incredibly fatigued and exhausted and a little bit angsty about the way that politicians have kind of been patronising and actually just fighting amongst themselves as opposed to proposing vision and solutions for the issues that are confronting all of us. So I'm really proud of the campaign that the Greens have run. We've been really, really clear and explicit about our values and upholding both people and the planet, and put evidence-based policies out there on the table. Because there's not only one party that's proposing change. We have been really, really clear about the changes that we can actually achieve if we are willing to uphold those values and implement those policies.
Madam has been pretty confrontational during the campaign, wouldn't you say? I mean, you can't just distance yourself from all of that.
No, but I've got to say, holding your ground, yeah, absolutely. That's a great thing to do when it comes to actually really fighting our corner and saying that this is the future that we believe that the country deserves. Because, again, we have a country that has the highest rates of wealth inequality that we've ever seen on record. We know full well that unless we are to meaningfully take action on climate change, we will continue to see massive issues like occurred here in Auckland with the Auckland anniversary floods, Cyclone Gabrielle. Yeah. So we need to both mitigate those climate change emissions and adapt to them.
So there are huge policy issues which everyone agrees that we need to get settled. So if it came down to it, Chloe, if the difference between us going back to the polls again, having a second election, as the National Party is warning in this ad campaign at the weekend, if the difference is between going back to the polls or you guys maybe working with a party you didn't want to work with, what would you do? I mean, would you ever do something with the Nats?
We have worked with the National Party when we were in opposition to warm up 300,000 New Zealand homes through our insulation
scheme. It's very
So,
successful.
exactly, and we've always been really pragmatic about that. And just the past 6 years that I've been in Parliament, I've consistently worked across the aisle with actually the ex-party as well as the National Party and the likes of Environment Select Committee and Finance and Expenditure Committee. So we are pragmatic as far as it comes to getting the outcomes for New Zealanders. But I need to be really, really clear here, because what we're looking at with a potential coalition between National and ACT are parties that want to reopen oil and gas drilling in Maui dolphin habitats, to do mining on conservation land and continue to put forward policies without meaningful consideration of climate changing impacts.
So if they change their position on some of those issues to get you guys on board...
Sure, if they were totally different parties, we'd be having a totally different conversation.
So if they change some of those policies, would you be open to going into
I think we've been clear about the fact that we're a democratic party and we will go through those processes if that is the circumstances and the way that the chips fall. But again, I need to be really, really clear to people that if they do want that meaningful transformational change with evidence-based policies that uphold the well-being of people on the planet, they need a party vote Green.
But they did that for the last 6 years.
But we had a majority Labor government in this past term.
I mean, if we look at the challenges that people face, there's too much government waste that's driving inflation. It's making it hard to balance not just the government budget, but every household budget right now. We've had an approach to crime that says if we're kind to criminals, they'll be kind back. Guess what? It's failed, and for many people, the results have been tragic. Yeah. And we've also lost social cohesion to a huge extent. Now, what the Greens are really saying is we would like to do that and do it more. And the other thing that comes with them is the idea that your problems are caused by someone else's success, so we're going to take away their money, we're going to make more rules and regulations. That's not a way forward for New Zealand.
You seem very calm and sort of quiet, almost a little bit meek this morning, David, which is uncharacteristic for you. Are you feeling a little bruised and battered after Winston's kind of come and cut your lunch at the last minute?
No, I'm not actually, and the answer I'll give is the one I'll give before you mention that. These wars, it's the same as the start of last year when we had that invasion in Ukraine.
Yeah.
It disturbs me, and I think about the fact that we are here having a free and fair, a peaceful election. We have the ability to change our future. We have the ability to make sure that the government changes and our policies and direction change. It's important that people come out and participate in that process. And if you want a change of government, a change of direction and a stable and united government, then my request is to give your party vote to that so we can get into
the politicians. I think that's the takeaway for everyone. We can get better outcomes if the people of this country engage.
Also, I want to say, because I was invited up at the weekend, a couple of people said to me, I can't vote because I don't have my easy voting pack.
Oh, no, you don't need your ID, folks.
No, yeah, just go to...
show up.
You can vote. Doesn't matter if you've been sent something in the mail or not.
We're not like the States.
Kate Shepherd didn't have an easy vote pack, and you don't need one either.
Here we go. Here we go. All right, that is ACT Leader David Seymour and Green MP Chloe Swarbrick. Guys, thanks so much for coming in this morning. It has just gone, I don't know what the time is.
5 away from 7.